Party people, party people. Can y'all get funky? This is Namo Kofi Joe. This is AfricaOnTheMove.com. That's where we're broadcasting from. This is the roof. The roof. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let it burn. Let it burn. Yeah, I'm coming back direct, trying to get here early this month. I had to do 2 back-to-back last month. So just trying to make sure I get it in, so I don't have to be other things come up in the month. I have to get to it. And so, yeah, but follow me on all my socials. Awakening Kinship, Awakening_Kinship. You can find me on all of the socials. You can go to AfricaOnTheMove.com and you can see all my latest work. You can see all the things I've done and move forward after that. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have a good discussion today. I'm gonna tell you do some little artwork. You can see these paintings are coming along, they're progressing. And I thought I might have been finished by now this month, but it's early. I just started. It's August 1st. This is Black August. And if you don't know now, Black August. Let me give you a little something about Black August before I get started. Commemorating Black August, fast, study, train, fight. Let me say that again. Black August, fast, period. Okay. Study, period. Train, period. Fight, period. Honoring those who sacrificed their freedom for ours. Let me read that again. Honoring those who sacrificed their freedom for ours. And now we are a people that have been living in this country since its inception. And throughout that period of time, we've had people who've always wanted to be African. And even that term African is only to delve into the idea of they wanted to go home. Okay. So in any way you want to take that, being African or going home, is synonymous to me. So I'm not going to question that. A lot of us had to fight just to get out of the place that we were in this country, then to find transportation to get them home, which became even a harder obstacle. So many of us just decided to make home outside of what they felt the confines were of colonialism, which to this day is something we're still trying to find out how to get out of those confines. And that kind of brings me to the topic of discussion today. The world is crazy. I mean, let's not forget what's going on in Africa. Let's not forget what's going on in any place where the oppression of capitalism has just, destroyed life. Okay. And in many ways, we want to look at it, well, maybe we don't want capitalism, maybe we do. It's not really the issue for me. The issue is we're living in an economic system. And as a result of that economic system, there are multitudes, okay, of problems. Okay. And we don't have to compare it. We don't have to say it's worse, better, none of that. All I'm just trying to paint the picture. Okay. And to paint the picture, we know that the system that tries to claim, every great thing that happens in the world is all. So yeah, we got to be conscious of that. Conscious and very capable of responding to when people talk about it, and try to educate them, about where we should be as a people. Where the world is basically heading. And we have to be the ones, to. And when I mean we, I mean every single one of us. Everybody needs to take some type of responsibility toward humanity and loving revolution. Okay, that's from George Jackson. George Jackson. If you don't know now, you know. Okay, but if George Jackson was, I can't do George Jackson justice in 15 minutes, in 2 minutes, in an hour. So I'm not going to sit here and try to explain to you why I brought that quote up or why George Jackson, but definitely look up George Jackson, find the name, Blood in Your Eye, okay, and read that book. Please read. If you don't read, you will never really understand why we're celebrating or in memorial of those freedom fighters, okay, all those revolutionaries, okay, that decided that this was not home. This was not the place for us to be, and it kept, and to this day, it keeps proving that, and we don't want to listen. Or even if we do listen, we don't know what to do once we have understood what's going on. So there's that too. I'm not going to, go against that. Because we need both, and not, I don't know. Well, let me take that back, because one is more important than the other. I think that what we haven't done as a people to truly define and be clear about is that we want some change. We not want to live under this system. And even if we flipped it and put ourselves in the same place white people live, just naturally as who we are as a people, we wouldn't want that. Okay, so I think the problem that overrides that feeling inside of us is, what do we do? What will the revolution? What will be the day after the revolution? That is, I think, holds us back more than anything, because we can't see that. When we examine what we are as a people, when I examine myself, I realize that the things that I'm carrying, right, do not fit the only way they fit is in this mess. And to think of ourselves outside of this system is very difficult. So I really don't want to come down on the folk with do-rags and bonnets, because I look at that as being an expression of resistance. And some of us like to believe that we need to have gatekeeping on what resistance looks like. I can't put it no clearer than that. That to be honest, I think anybody that's gatekeeping resistant ain't resistant. Okay, so whatever they think they're trying to tell you about what you need to do to make it, not taking into consideration anything else about your life, other than some do-rags or some bonnets, I think that's the root of the problem. We checking each other, and it's the person that if you check them, went back and checked their life, are they being honest? Honestly, do you really think by me showing up to your class, or somehow or another, I didn't get proper training at home? Not to say what proper training at home even looks like in this society. So we got to we have to focus there's a whole lot more stuff going on in our community, and we have to look at stuff like that as distraction, and the time and energy people have put into this, like a lot of other things. I think that there's a movie that was Children of Blood and Bone. That's been a big. We've been talking about this sister who don't want you to go see her own movie, and maybe I won't. Just because she says so. I'm like, look that hot anyway. But I mean, I'm not even gonna get into that. But I'm just saying that the thing is, we need to focus on Gaza, Sudan, what's going on in South Africa, when we travel into Ghana, that those are building that we can build with that. We can build. We caught up in like I'm not gonna say I'm not neither, but and my family, they like to remind me of it, then and I'm struggling with that because a lot of that I don't see, but I think that we've been spending, and even I have been spending way too much time on trying to find what will bring us together with the issue around the durags and the bonnets, and I think only one side really holds the truth with that whole issue, and that is, what are we training I said today that when y'all get ready to start the revolution, I'll go get dressed. And until then, stop playing in my face. And that kind of sums it up for me, So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about something else. What is going on in the world today? There's still issues around Black Lives Matter, and there's maybe an organization that was kind of dismantled, so that they could continue with the Black Lives Matter not mattering, and I don't know where it's really taking its place. There tends to be more of a, there's been, now we've had, like recently that I know of, there's been 2 incidents where there have been young men who've been in association with white men more than their own people. There wasn't an equal number, and they tend to end up either dead or given sentences based on no self-defense. You can't claim self-defense on that one. You attack the person without even thinking about the whole, like the Carmelo Anthony. That's not over with. And I think it's going to hold a precedent of how we are treated in America that dates back to the time we began. From Dred Scott to Plessy versus Ferguson to Brown versus the Board of Education. When are we going to get it? When are we really going to understand what's happening? This ain't no different, okay? And in my lifetime, I feel like I've learned enough about what has happened in the past to be able to say that the future if we want a future, can't hold some of the things that you know, they're not some of the things, all of the things that have put destruction in our front of our past as a people. That if there was such a thing as a freedom from slavery, which I highly doubt, that if you had such a freedom, the whole system that was designed to enslave you would have to be removed. And you would have to revert every person that was caught up in slavery back to, not back to a state, but understand the state that they were in before they were enslaved, and build that beyond what we're living in today, if that makes any sense. Because that is, I feel like, the crux of the matter when it comes to why our people, get caught up in the in a lot of the distractions and a lot of the, the ideas that are not setting us free. They are making us even more fooled by it in some ways, and we raise all these discussions around, what happened, but we don't address the root. We don't address the root cause. So we just continually just keep getting played, like the game is stacked against us. It always has. And we always somehow think that somehow that we're going to win. Some of us win, some of us get a chance, to do some things. But as a whole, no, we don't win. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, the game was never designed for us to win. And then some of us realize that too, and start realizing, well, I can't be about with y'all because y'all don't get this, right? They gonna say that somehow or another, just because they know the game and they know what's happening, that I'm gonna keep on ripping you off because you think in some ways, we brothers and sisters, but in a lot of ways, all you focused on is the game, and shit. Blood don't mean nothing to you, when I say I'm trying to an awakening kinship, that means that you have people who don't even know, have, blood ties, but don't see them ties as being anything worth connecting with, and being a part of. And so that dormant, what's sleeping there in them, is what I'm trying to awaken. Okay. So that you awaken to an idea that, oh yeah, you are my brother. Oh yeah, you are my sister. So I have to treat you differently, and I don't know how hard that is for some folk. I don't even know how easy that is for some folk. All I know is that until we have a strong bond in what we understand about ourselves, whatever that may be, and that is also connected to the person or the people next to you, then we and I'm even saying we getting there, to be honest. I don't think that it's our people have not been able to see that in each other, and I'm not surprised when I run into it, that somebody's gonna let me know that that's what they seeing, right? That happened like yesterday, right? So the unspoken, the silence, that you can look over at a brother or your sister and you can let them know that I love you. And it ain't dying. Okay? That love ain't dying. You know. So I think those are the kind of things that we need to be focused on, as a people. And also kind of letting people know that this is where I'm coming from. Because, the part of, and I know it ain't easy. I know it ain't easy. I know that. I know that the way the system has got us all twisted up, that you don't feel twisted. You feel like this is what you're talking about. This is normal. This is what we do. This is who I am, And I've talked about this before, but the education system, the political education system, which was on top of the education system in this country, knew what they were doing and how to educate us, right? And most of the education we got was to justify what is going on and make you a people to think that your capitalist rulers are telling y'all what to do. Okay. And we're gonna give you this, we're gonna give you that, we're gonna make this look good, we're gonna do this over here. And y'all gonna enjoy this, right? But along the way, it's gonna cause a lot of destruction, okay, and devastate, lives, permanently, people, remove genocide, right? All in the name of profit, right? Profit more important than people. And I don't think children are educated against that. I think all of the children that grew up in this country are educated for that. And so certain things, when you start to question it, have to be, answered correctly, or you won't be against it. So the answers are what people, strive for more. To who controls the answers. Answer doesn't mean that it's right. The answer doesn't mean that it's wrong. Answer means it's the answer to whatever the question might be. Okay. And that's what a lot of times we run on. All I wanted was an answer. Remember, people say that, and that's all you never say. You didn't do nothing. You didn't give me no answer. You didn't do what you wanted to do. And that's because when you an answer is like a solution, okay, and if you can find a solution, okay, then it's gonna be all good. Everything gonna work. Everything fine. So. And there goes, when it comes to us as a people, we need to find a solution to some of the things that are going on in our community. Not like it can't be solved, it's there's a solution out there. Are we willing to accept a solution? If somebody has some medicine for you and it's going to, work, it's going to clear whatever problem that you have, but it don't taste good. Or you got to take it all the time. Or maybe you can't ever stop taking it. You're going to have to keep taking it. How many of us are willing to go through that, right? Just to prove that the answer is right or wrong. They're not going to go through all that. The big part of it is that if they got an answer that they can live with, it's like, okay, I wanted to sell my core and I wanted $50,000 for the core. Car was only worth 10,000, but I wanted 50,000 for it, right? And somebody came in and wanted to buy the car, and they said it was, and we gonna give me 25,000, and I took it because I knew the car really wasn't worth 50,000, but I wanted that amount for it. But the idea was is that if they gonna pay me 25, I still made some money. I still made more than the car is actually worth, right? And I say all that to say that when we value who we are as a people, when we as a people, when we put a price tag on that, we start talking about reparations. We want to get paid back, for all that we worth. We can't be worth $10,000 asking for $50,000. Okay. So the game is a game out here in this world, what we dealing with. But what we want for ourselves, we don't want that same game. Okay. We don't want that game back. That game has been what's been the problem. Okay. So, the focus is that, we were $50,000. And we ain't going no lower than that. Okay. And if you can get that, that analogy, that, but the thing is, we are definitely a people that are on the move right now, and we are definitely doing some self-evaluation, self-examination, starting to express ourselves from that, that core, and that is very important. I think I see that more and more people who are tapping in to something that was before they were enslaved and now are turning that around and looking beyond what we're living in and putting that down, laying that down. And that's just going to increase. There's just going to be more and more of that. That's natural. It's we're going to talk about some of this artwork in a minute. We can delve a little more into some of this, because that's not only where I'm at, that's where I'm heading. That's where I'm going. Those are the type of images that are important nowadays, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into this. You can see behind me that there are these, I would say, halfway finished. Let me see. Okay. Can you see that? That looks a little better. Can you see that? I had to do some reworking this, and that's what kind of we're going to talk about today. Is when you're doing a painting, how do you erase? So that's what we're going to talk about. And one thing is good about painting, when you have to erase, is, well, all you got to do is just throw some more color over it. That erases what was under, whatever mistake or whatever felt you want to do differently. And I really liked this painting and the one that I'm working on. The other one I'm working on, I'm gonna show you both, but I want to get the name of this so that and what it means, what we're focused on is science. Okay, so science, right? We are a scientific people. We have to go back and capture that science. That's what I entitled this picture. Uh, Long, kind of long title, but and I could show you. I think I probably already did show you. There's a picture above it that has the words that I just said underneath it. And I've been thinking about whether I'm gonna put those words on this or does it really actually need it. It'll probably be determined by how well the idea come across on both sides. That um, on the side with the flask or the test tube, uh, you see like this concoction kind of. I wanted to make it look very polluted and grimy kind of concoction being created. Uh, Something toxic. I don't want it to. I don't want to look like something you want to. Oh, that looks good. Let me go get a drink. No, I want it to look like it's poison. Okay. So what is being created in this test tube is some kind of poison, and that poison is also linked to like the you see the little Disney kind of reference, and then the Apple kind of reference, and then the battery, the kind of reference. So and then this black kind of smoke kind of pouring out of the test tube. Uh, this is the part of us that we were kind of just talking about earlier that is uh, influenced by Western civilization. What Western civilization success, right? What made them successful? Entertainment. Information. And power. And all of that mixed up with a whole lot of other poisonous, rhetoric. But this is a reality of what we've been living in, right? But then on the other side of the painting, there's this black man. I was hoping that it reminded people of Frantz Fanon. So it was kind of a little bit of a you know homage to that. Was the first book that I read when I was probably 17, 18 years old that really got me going on thinking, you know, differently. Was taking a humanities class. I always tell this story. I was taking an humanities class at a city college when I got out of high school, and the teacher had about 4 or 5 books that he wanted us to read, not read totally, but chapters, like parts of them. And one of them was "The Wretched of the Earth" by Frantz Fanon. And I always tell people that when I picked up that book, I couldn't put it in. I read the whole book. I wasn't focused on just the one little chapter. Or maybe I read it and maybe think, well, I need to read the whole book. But I remember telling the teacher that, and he was looking at me like, well, that wasn't the assignment in the class. That wasn't what you were supposed to be doing. And I always looked at how important that book was to me and how little of importance he thought it was, and it always kind of stuck with me about the influence, like who am I going to be more influenced by, right? Was it going to be Frantz Fanon, or was it going to be this teacher that was kind of dismissing, that I even got something out of the book, But anyway, that was kind of like the piece there about the face, a young, maybe early Frantz Fanon, he died very young though. So, uh, where he would have been in life, afterwards, um, you know, we don't know. But I'm gonna find out exactly what year Frantz Fanon, how many years Frantz Fanon actually lived, because I know it wasn't long. He was 36 years old, and that's young. That's young. Um, but brilliant as far as what we need to be thinking about as a people. Maybe even to the extent that his brilliance is overlooked because it challenges us just way too much. And so that's what I feel like I'm trying to do even in this painting. But this Ankh, I'm redoing the Ankh. Ankh for me, I felt was too small. Um, and it wasn't kind of in line with the model that was the AI model that I made from the drawing of this picture. But the Ankh is representing not only the Ankh, but the eye and the nose and the mouth that's in the Ankh are all representing Umoja. And Umoja is the breath, the air, like the life force. And so that's what that image is representing. And you see that it's over, and you maybe can't see as clearly, but it's over the masses of our people. That's the representation of people, and they're supposed to be representing the masses of our people, right? And so our connection, the science of who we are as a people, our connection to Umoja, right, is more is I want to say more beneficial to who we are as a people. And we first have to let the other side go. It's just that scientific. We are. What did I say? We are a scientific people. Okay, we are a scientific people. That's what the title of this painting is going to be. Scientific people. We have to go back and capture that science. So there's one science on one side that we're very familiar with. There's, the toxicity, the capitalism, but there's another side of the science that we have to go retrieve. We have to go back and retrieve. We have to regain it. And that's the science of Umoja, a spiritual science. Okay. So yeah, this painting is going to be deep. This and maybe I'll even call it a spiritual scientific people. Yeah, I think I am. I think I'm gonna do that because and now if I don't, it might get a little lost in the sauce. But I think that's what I'm gonna do because but it's like I said, it's on its way. But I definitely have a lot of tightening it up, a lot of refining. I feel like the basic images in there and the basic images down. But now it's a period about bringing them more out, like separating them, defining them more, how the light hits them, all of that, is going to have to come out more. The reason why I had to talk about erasing with paint was you didn't see. I could have done it while I was online, but I actually took some white paint and created a new Ankh. Okay, the Ankh that I had there before was smaller, and I didn't like the size of the eye or where the eye was situated. I'm even still thinking that now, since I did the erased what was there, and I didn't like where the nose and the mouth sat on the Ankh, right? So now I think I'm going to bring up the nose and the mouth, right? I'm gonna paint over both of those, and the nose and the mouth, and bring them up because I didn't like how it was sitting. Where I wanted the nose was more at the cross part of the Ankh, and the mouth right below that. So that way the eye and the nose and the mouth are look like they're more aligned with one another, more like a cyclops, you know. And yeah, I was gonna get into a little bit. I might get into that next month, but yeah, there's a mythology that it's kind of disturbing when it comes to what it really meant compared to what they turned it into. Um, and so, the all-seeing eye, has been kind of, you know, taken over, you know, and it's become a lot more than what it has been. You hear my dog back there, Kimmett snoring. He's sleeping. I'm gonna let him sleep. I'm gonna enjoy the sound. I hope y'all ain't got a problem with it. But he good. He didn't walk 3 miles today. Okay, how many miles did you walk? He deserves a little nap. Okay, let me get on this other paint. All right, y'all like this one? Y'all can see that. This one is called Africanization. And if you go back to some of the videos prior to this, you'll see where these both of these paintings have, they've come a long way. There's certain things in this one that were important to lay down before I finished it. And like I said, I'm about halfway finished with this one too. It's not totally where I want it, but it's getting there. One of the biggest challenges for this painting for me was this quilt that she's sewing. And it may not look like that right now, but that's kind of like what I'm trying to achieve. That's what's so difficult, is making this look like a quilt. I think it's a very powerful piece. It's called Africanization. I did a painting years ago called Creolization. And Creolization was about Africans coming to Africans coming to an American continent and meeting people that once they got off the slave ships that were already conformed to how life was supposed to be here, and they were offering, them the guide to that. They were above the boat, so they were the first people that they saw, and they had already changed into something else. Then they somewhere along the line felt like they were not African anymore. you know, you know, there's a lot of that of what we are as a people. When we'll travel around the world with this nonsense that we have here, proclaiming that this is who we are, rather than, realizing that, we were brought here in chains, right? And then converted by some of our own people, into who we are, to forget or to not remember who we are. So we'll go around the world with that. That's, to me, is a little embarrassing, but that's what this painting was about. What we had been, forced into being. And so the creolization was one, and I never did a painting like on the opposite end of that. Whereas this is the painting on the opposite end, which is called Africanization, which I didn't realize. It took me a while to understand this point. But the point is that everything that we touch, we Africanize. So on one side of the painting, you have Christianity, you have Islam, you have Judaism, you have the Abrahamic, religions. that been introduced to the continent of Africa. But in all instances of every one of those, whoever brought it, whatever, the Europeans, the Arabs, the whoever were the invaders brought their religion. But even as they brought their religion, once it, collided or, meshed with the African people, this is what the other side is saying, that it became Africanized. It was no longer, you see, on one side, there were three Abrahamic religions, right? But on the other side, there's just one, continuous motif, that this is African, right? And the woman, this elder, is just enjoying her day, making this quilt, right? And I want the quilt to be pretty much finished. She's just kind of like sewing the two together, And but one, then the background too. I like the background because it was a suggestion to me from drawing. I drew the picture of this woman doing what is in front. And I might have said something, but not to, I don't know, fully effect of wanting to be her being in Africa. But the AI model that came out put a background on it. And one thing I wanted to make sure that I captured in the background was space. I didn't want it to look like this painting was not 3D, three-dimensional. And so the background is layered. It's a lot of layers of paint to give a stint that there's something behind that wall. Okay. There's room, there's space behind that wall. And I think I kind of say I kind of achieved that, but if you knew how I did it, it's not just, it looks black, but if you look closer, there's a lot of, browns and yellows and, just a mixture of colors. And, there's like, I got a little something hanging on the wall and on the back wall, But if you were to see this painting up close, you would see all of that. You would see all that layering. And then the block of stone that is behind her, there's a shadow that's being cast from on the top of it. It's darker than the lower part to give a sense that she's under something or she could walk into something there. And the little tools on the side, casting a shadow. There's like some brick, a little bit of brick there. The little side on the side of her arm is being raised. There's a bowl there sitting out, maybe putting with thread or whatever, pins, whatever. But there's a sense of everything that's behind her creates some depth. Okay. And also the depth is created by the quilt, because I wanted to make the quilt look like, and I'm still working on this, but I wanted to make the quilt have a feeling that there's a feet underneath her, right? Or at the quilt bends, and it's not just this flat, straight kind of thing, but it's a more of a material. So I'm trying, put shadows in it, light, way light hits it, just recreate some of the imagery I saw on the model, that I got. And not to be just, right, 100% accurate on that, but just because that wasn't the original drawing in the first place, just to give it a sense of that is really the point, is not to overdo it, not to, work myself to death trying to get this thing right, but just to get the feeling. The one thing about art that's important is once you feel like you've accomplished the idea of what you were doing, you're finished. Don't ever go beyond that, no matter what you think. And I think that even just saying that alone might not sound like a lot, but if you understood what I meant about idea and how, like you might have I'm trying, let me see if I can get a kind of analogy to this, but if you have an idea of something and you can see that idea, and then if you tell somebody about that idea in a way that they get it too, they get exactly what you felt you were trying to say in that idea, then you've done all the work that you needed to do for expressing that idea. And even though I'm not asking anybody, about the idea that I did, and I have a kind of an inner, little voice that I have to listen to that says, okay, now you've expressed the idea. Okay. And to myself, right? And I think as an artist, you have to live with some of that. You can't expect to do something like somebody else does. You have to do what you do, right? And to the best of your ability, right? But you should at least, have an idea of what you want to do, and make sure that you follow through with the idea, at least to yourself. Have some self-respect. And so that's where I kind of have to feel like I'm done and finished, is when I've exhausted that. I come to the point where, well, I can't express it any further. I can't express it any more fuller. But yeah, this one is going to call Africanization, and it I have to say that some of the work that I've been doing lately, I never thought I would get there, in my work, but I feel like where I'm at now is where I wanted to be, the work that I'm doing has definitely been a progression. And there's been times where I felt like I worked an idea as well as I could for that period of time. But since ideas build upon each other, and I've been building on ideas, that these paintings are a result of that, of the result of a constant focus, a constant reminder, a constant what you have to do. And a lot of it's been through conversation, or through something I've watched, something I've seen, something I've heard, and but also the people that I learned from, the ancestors. All year, this whole year, I've been focused on the ancestors, and the ancestors been showing up. They've been like, they were standing there all alone. Okay, I was like, when did you? I was wondering when I was gonna realize. They've been talking to me, right? And but yeah, I think these paintings are a result of that. They're the result of talking to my ancestors, and making sure that what they've said to me, I'm able to put down, like, I'm trying to get the idea from them. I'm trying to figure out what I can do, and but they've been correct, okay, on a whole lot of stuff, right? And so I try to stay true to that. I try to stay true to the ancestors, and my mother, my father, they were big ancestors and biggest ancestors I had, and the and I shouldn't say the big ancestors I had. I said the biggest ancestors that are present. Okay, uh, they have always stayed that way, and but I also think one thing that I've kind of recently more focused on is the generations, like the seventh generation after me, like, and I mean, not after so much me, but after this work, right? That will that work survive, 7 generations? That's kind of like the key, because there's a lot of people's work that I don't know if they're thinking like that. I don't know if they're looking at it like that. And I don't even know if my work is like that either. Okay. Because I don't think that you're in a place or a position where you could even know that. But to think from that position to do your work is another thing. And so that's kind of like where I'm at with what I'm doing, and I didn't realize that. I needed to focus more on that. And we getting ready to get to the end of this. We done. This has been good. This has been what we need to do more of. Hopefully next month is September. My birth month. The return of my solar return, and I'll be 67. Okay, and if I make it, if you get another video, I made it. But the other focus is what am I going to do for my birthday? I want to do a couple of things. So the big thing is just get there. Okay, let me get there first. Okay, but yeah, this is AfricaOnTheMove.com. No, this is The Roof Is On Fire. We don't need no water. Let that mother. I almost did it, but I already know y'all said it, so it don't make no. I don't have to worry about it no more. Okay, but yeah, this is catch me on all my socials on Awakening Kinship. Awakening Kinship _ Kinship. You can catch me everywhere. Okay, all of the socials, right? And yeah, we got some work to do, people. We got some work to do. Okay, we got to build something. Okay, we can't keep pulling up in this. Okay, this stuff is nonsense, man. Make me want to wear a do-rag every day. Okay, just popping up. I'm gonna give me a fresh one too. You'll have like a little baby, like one day, a little red, black, and green one. The other one gonna be all white though. It's gonna be all white. Maybe have like a little black outline to Africa on it. I might start popping up in them things. Just like bam. Shit. I didn't know they was working like that. Okay. Shit. I'm trying to get my wife, get a bonnet, throw that on, be a nice one, be fly, come here, have it hanging all the way down, But yeah, we got to stop playing, y'all. We got to stop being about none of this and this nonsense, Yeah, let me leave y'all with this. Man, I just this little for the quote of the day, okay? I just want to give you the quote of the day, and then I'm gonna get up out of here, okay? And the quote of the day is, let me get my glasses. Let me know what time it is. Let me know what time is the revolution so I can get dressed. Until then, stop playing in my face. Let me know what time is the revolution so I can go get dressed. Until then, stop playing in my face. Okay? I want to read it again. Play the video back. You want to hear it again. But y'all need to be focused. All right? We got to get out of this nonsense. Okay? We got to get a red tag. All right. Forward.